Some time ago, a rare archaeological object was discovered, and no one is quite sure how old it is, how far it goes back, what era it's from, what civilization. But basically, you can almost read into it a profound definition of the culture that created it. And this is true of, a lot of things, Stonehenge, pyramids, and so on. Well, anyway, this particular artifact, I can show it to you. Here we go. See, now, this artifact appears to resemble a frog, right? The frog being a natural life form. And yet the mouth is open. And why would that be? Well, you look inside, and it's a garbage can. All right. So what does this say about the culture? Just as in, Egypt or Aztecs or any of these other peoples. And basically what it says is that nature itself, represented by the frog, is there with its mouth gaping open wide, waiting to be fed your garbage. And in a sense, that's seems to be a profound sort of underwritten definition of our culture in many ways. So I hope you find that fascinating. It can get strange contemplating the world that we live in, not the natural world, but the human world. And it's such a mess in so many ways. Things are failing, systems are failing, all kinds of problems going on, conflicts, people fighting, arguing, and usually these conflicts come down to, disagreements about what is right. And basically, it's like a classroom of squabbling children where everyone wants to be right. And people will grab onto something, simplistic idea, a few words, and cling to it with the belief that that is right, which makes them righteous. And there again, like the example of the classroom full of squabbling children, unsupervised, wrecking everything, arguing, fighting. Not everyone, but a lot. That, I think, very well sums up our global culture descriptively. So, anyway, you might ask yourself, it's like, well, is there any way out of this ever? And, why is it like this? And things like that. And depending upon your perspective, you could take an outside perspective. Now, I've never met an alien, but say, for example, gray aliens or whatever are coming here, observing us, and why would they not be interfering or helping us or giving us gifts or something like that? And they're like, well, because they recognize what's happening and they understand that they shouldn't be interfering. So anyway, the chaos, the pain, the suffering, the conflicts, they appear to be for some reason. And from the perspective, another outside perspective, well, not exactly outside, but you could call it enlightenment or nirvana or Christ consciousness or something like that. When people experience that, what they feel about this reality is basically a complete, total acceptance of it, appreciation of it, and gratitude for existing within it. And that's kind of important. That's kind of key in a way, at least. Well, anyway, it's another perspective. So you can look at it as being chaos or being a learning process. And essentially it is a learning process. It may take a while, depending where you are on, say, for example, reincarnation. You know, it is in a sense coming back and repeating the grade. So you may have some lesson that you're working on, you don't get it the first time, so you come back and try again. So anyway, yeah. So you might ask yourself, this messy classroom scenario that I've described and the way that people behave within it, and the way that people, some see from an outside perspective, a larger perspective, where they're able to see it as a blessing in a way, that this is the way things are sort of meant to function, and we don't quite see it that way yet. You might ask yourself, well, you know, here we are and all this chaos is going on, and a tremendous amount of vitriol, conflict, hate, opposition, things like that. And it's like, well, what can we do about it? How can we fix it or address it, or not partake in it, or be a positive example or something like that? And basically, to give an example, if you take someone that you consider to be reprehensible, you know, it could be someone in politics or, you know, government or whatever area you like, and, you know, you think that they're basically inhuman, cruel, insensitive, and so on. And it's not that you're necessarily doing anything about it or helping them or anything. You are just pointing a finger, essentially. And when you're doing that, it switches your focus out externally. And so you may or may not be aware or focused on your own shortcomings. So, for example, it's not that perhaps you have never made a mistake or done a bad thing or been cruel or insensitive or something like that, because the chances are very good that you have. So how do you work past this? How do you get past this? Well, you could take someone who is, well, Donald Trump's a good example. He's, you know, worshipped on one hand, vilified on the other. But his audience is essentially, it's a cult mentality where they just basically operate on a couple of words, you know, MAGA, make America great again, Trump, blah, blah. You know, there's not much deeper thought or analysis going on there. And but at any rate, in his case personally, and I'm not pointing the finger, making accusations, things like that, but having said that, the reality is that he has done some fairly reprehensible things. I won't go into detail, but then again, so have I. And I'm sure you have too, so let's join the club. And anyway, so your choice when it comes to people like this in the world, which is a large, you know, percentage, they tend to be the ones that are the most visible too. They tend to attract attention because it's a, you know, disaster scenario, basically. And so what do? Do you go into conflict against them? It's like, you know, just like Trump, you can look at this old man and see a damaged child, very damaged. The way he was treated by his father, basically, is the root cause of the way he is today. And, you know, decades of the same behaviors, reinforcing it. And, you know. So anyway, that's key, I think, is that these enemies, so-called, that you may have, which is, you know, that dynamic is essentially self-serving, It's not empathy, understanding, or anything like that. Hold on. It's essentially more judgment, feeding back to them what they're sending out. So then you get into an endless reflection back and forth of these negative, unconstructed patterns. So anyway, what do you do to step out of that? Well, you can, as I said, you can see the reality of the damage that people are carrying, and you can be empathetic. Dare I use the word love? So, yeah, I mean, you can, I don't know, does it say that in the Bible? Love thine enemy or something like that? Maybe it does, but basically when you do that, then you are no longer in the conflict mode with them, and there actually is a much better chance of things getting fixed for everyone. It's much more constructive and positive. And in closing, an example I would give is the Dalai Lama, who, when he was imprisoned by the Chinese, he was being tortured, which is not a nice thing. And what he said to the people that were torturing him was, "I forgive you." And basically, who would do that? Most people would not do that. And but what happened was that the people that were doing the torturing, that he was saying "I forgive you" to, they couldn't take it. They had to keep replacing them. And so anyway, at the risk of waxing profound and deep and woo-woo and everything, I think that basically covers it. So this is a message that, it's as old as time. I didn't make it up or anything like that. And of course, on social media these days, what do you see on Facebook? Dumb pictures, quotes of wisdom. Someone can trot out the quote of wisdom and perhaps authentically think it's going to help someone, or not, or it's just moral posturing, whatever. But they're everywhere out there, and is it really doing any good, or is it just keeping you addicted to your phone? Well, it's a mixture, of course. It may be that someday that you read or hear something that does sink in and profoundly affect you and change things for the better. So, should I leave it there? Carl Sagan is popping in my head because that's something that I see a lot of quotes from. And Carl Sagan, he basically said, I think it's in one of his books, that, our culture, our civilization is in decline, doomsday is coming, and people aren't, doing anything about it because they might be clutching their crystals or reading their horoscopes. Well, here again, this is oppositional. So what's the matter with crystals? Perhaps crystals do something that science doesn't quite understand. They do get used for lasers, Some say that the Atlanteans used them for all sorts of purposes. I don't know, I wasn't there. But horoscopes, it's peculiar because when you look at the zodiac and people's signs, usually it makes perfect sense. It's like, yeah, that describes this person incredibly accurately, It's like you pop into the universe at a certain point on the clock, and it has something to do with your traits, your personality, and so on. So it's the kind of thing that when you get someone popping up in the church of science, not Scientology, but science, that science is inerrant and we need to follow that completely. I'm sure that Carl Sagan out there floating around somewhere. Oh shit. Yeah, there he is. Maybe slip and bust my ass. But I'm sure he would, fairly sure he would recant a lot of those things. So anyway, unfortunately, science and technology, that's our culture is somewhat rooted in those things, and they claim to be inerrant, and science is the best way to understand things, and so on. So anyway, I promise that's the end for today. Bye-bye.